So today we're going to do the handover video on this Bailey Approach 740 SE. We're going to start on the outside and then we're going to move on to the inside. I would like to start the video by also saying that the van hasn't yet had a valet. I'm just wanting to get this video out to you in good time, ready for your handover. So firstly, coming over to the passenger side, you will notice that you've got your fill up point here for your diesel. You'll need your ignition key just to unlock that there. Opening up the passenger door, you'll also notice that you've got your bonnet release catch, which is just here. I'll just release the bonnet for you now. You've then also got your tyre pressures, which are just located on the door sill here. And on this model, you've got something called a Remis cab blinds fitted. The Remis cab blinds can just be operated by simply pinching this black tab and pulling the blind out like so. Lead the blind from the bottom and let that connect up via the magnetic strip. The same goes for the front window and of course the same on the other side. And when you're taking these back in, simply pull away and then again lead from the bottom. If you lead from the top, I find that the blind can get twisted and sometimes caught. So just simply lead that from the bottom and let that connect up into place, just like so. Like I said, same goes for the front windscreen as well, and these just connect up via the magnetic strip and meet in the middle. Now underneath the bonnet, hopefully you won't need to know much underneath here, but just to point out a couple more things. If you're jump starting the vehicle, you've got your negative terminal, which is just located here as indicated by the sticker, and your positive terminal is just located underneath this flap here, as you can see. Now there's a little plus sign to indicate that this is the positive, so positive onto there, negative onto there. Underneath the bonnet as well, just to point out, you've got your engine oil here along with your dipstick. Above, you've then got your brake disc fluid, you've got your engine coolant, your power steering fluid, and then finally right in the corner you've got your washer fluid for the front windscreen. Moving on and moving around to the side of the vehicle, you can see that we've got your first locker here. In here, as indicated by the sticker, is where your LPG gas bottles can be located. Now in the gas locker with this open, you can fit 2 gas bottles in here. You can get a 13 kg bottle in here if you wanted. I'd recommend going for 2 6s. It just means that they fit in there a little bit nicer and they're easier to remove. Up at the top, you've got your gas regulator, which is here, and you've got 2 points on here so you can connect 2 bottles at the same time. You'll need a gas pigtail, which will then connect onto here. That pigtail or that pipe will then link into your gas bottle, and then on the gas bottle itself you'll have a little valve that you can turn, and that will release and allow all the gas to go through the vehicle. Obviously when you're travelling, you need to ensure that all your bottles, or both your bottles rather, are turned off. You don't want any gas flowing through the vehicle as you're travelling, because of course if you are involved in a collision it could be quite nasty. So just make sure that when you're travelling your gas bottles are turned off, and then when you're on site you can turn them on. You've then got this little control here, as it says dual control. This will allow you to select the gas bottle that you want the gas to come out of. You can see there's a little arrow here on the side of it. When it's pointing this way, it will be feeding off this gas bottle. Simply turn it like so, and once it's pointing this way towards this gas bottle, it'll be taking off this one. So it just depends obviously which bottle you want the gas to come out of. So moving on from the gas locker, next up brings us on to your first drain down point in the motorhome, and this one's actually external. You can see this grey valve here will allow you to drain one of your tanks, that tank being your fresh water tank. So all you've got to do is turn that valve like so, and that will allow you to drain down the water. Now the vehicle is pretty much drained down to begin with, everything is pretty much out of the van, but you can see there's just a little bit trickling out because we're on a slight hill. To seal that, turn that like so in the up position, and that is now sealed. Now that is for your fresh water. You've got 2 of the drain down points, one being your boiler, which is located on the inside of the van, and also your wastewater tank, which is again located on the inside of the van. Now it is incredibly important, especially this time of year, that when you're not using the motorhome, every single bit of water is drained out of the van. You don't want to leave any water in the van, because obviously if it gets to below freezing conditions that we've had recently in the UK, it could potentially freeze, which would then burst a line. So just make sure that everything is drained down completely. In the summer months, it doesn't matter as much, but I always find if you get into the habit of having that drain down open and drain down when you're not using it. It just means when it comes to using it in the winter, you're already in that habit of draining everything down. Obviously, if you're using the vehicle, don't worry about it. You know, you can fill everything up, but just bear that in mind. What I'd personally recommend, especially with this particular tank here, with it being underslung, is if you are using it in really cold conditions, simply use a bucket, stick that underneath and leave that tank open. That will just allow all your waste, all your fresh, everything to drain out of the tank, just in case it is obviously extremely cold. Next up, you've then got your toilet cassette, which is here. Now, opening up the locker, you can see it gains you access to the cassette. All you need to do is lift up on this orange valve and slide the cassette out towards you. Once the cassette is released, you can remove it and begin to drain it. Now, before removing that, you need to always ensure that the blade on the toilet is closed. Now, the blade is a piece of plastic that's on the toilet. I will show you obviously where that is and how to operate it, but you can open and close it. You want to make sure before removing this that is closed, because if it is open, when you come to remove the cassette, it could get jammed, and it has been known for customers to pull that, force it and break the system entirely. So just bear that in mind. Always ensure that that is closed. If it pulls out freely, you're good to go, but if it feels like it's getting jammed, you've probably left it open. So again, just something to look out for. To drain this down, all you need to do, remove the cassette like so, twist out the funnel and remove the grey cap, and then using the orange button on the back, that will release an internal vacuum, allowing you to empty all the contents of the cassette out nice and easily. Once you've done that, you can put a bit of water in here just to swill the cassette out. And if you're using blue fluid, that can go straight into the cap. There's a little measurement on there to indicate how much blue fluid you will require for the cassette. Stick that in there, put the cap back on, and that cassette is ready to go back into the motorhome. You'll also notice on the cassette you have got this orange dial here. This actually moves, and this is what makes contact with the blade. So when you're opening and closing the blade, this will allow you to open and close the cassette. This should always stay in this position. If this is off slightly, you'll go to pop the cassette back in and it won't allow you to, it will get jammed. So always make sure that that is in that position. The easiest way of remembering it is if it came out like that, it needs to go back in like that. Dead easy. So once that's all drained down, you've got the cap back on, lift the cassette back up, offer it back up to the cassette locker and simply slide that in until that orange handle sits flush with that, and that is all ready for travelling. Let that connect back in, you can then fasten that up and then you're away. Now directly above that, you'll also notice that you've got this little compartment. Again, you can open this through your key. This will allow you to top up the flush, and all that does is when you flush the toilet in the motorhome, that will just release a scented smell to ensure that it smells a little bit nicer for when you're flushing all the contents away out the cassette, and that is how you can fill it up. Now moving round to the side of the to the rear of the vehicle, you can see that you've got your reversing camera, which is up at the top there. You've then got some ladders which will help you up onto the van. I don't typically recommend obviously standing on the van for a prolonged period. It's alright when you're cleaning it and doing bits of maintenance, but they're really there for the technicians and if anything needs to be done on the roof. And then you can see that you've got your bike rack, which is located here. Now I can show you how the bike rack operates in person. It's probably going to be a little bit easier, but it's a relatively easy thing to get your head around. All you need to do is pull this bike rack forward. These two sections will then flip down, and you can see using these almost cable ties, these slide out and these can go round the bike wheel, and then they just clip in just like so and will tighten the bike in position. You've then got the same thing on these arms here. They will then allow you to secure the bike's frame into position, and then you're good to go. But like I said, if you do want me to show you how that works on handover, just give me a shout and I will happily do so. Moving around to the side of the vehicle, you'll notice you've got a Hymer F45S awning fitted to this van. Now I will send you a separate video showing you how this can operate. As you can appreciate, I've only got the one hand in this video, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to show you, but I will send you a separate video showing you how to use this correctly. The two main things that you need to remember when using the awning is if it is a windy day, you need to always ensure that the awning goes back into position. You don't really want to be using the awning in wind, because if you get a little bit of wind underneath it, you could potentially rip it from the side of the van. Because at the end of the day, it's like having a massive sail on the side of the vehicle. So if it gets a bit windy, take the awning in. The second thing as well is, although the awning can be used in rain, at some point you are going to need to dry the awning out. You don't really want it sitting in there for a long time if it's been caught in rain, because obviously it'll just lead to mould and it'll begin to rot the awning. So if you can just bear that in mind, if it's raining, it's probably best to take it back in. But as I say, I will send you a separate video showing you how that can operate. Next up, right at the rear, you've got an external gas point. You'll need a little nozzle which will then connect into here. That's just on a bayonet fitting. That can clip onto there, and then that pipe can then feed into your barbecue. All you've got to do is obviously turn this valve to release the gas, make sure your gas is turned on, and that will allow you to use your external barbecue point. Forgot to mention on the other side as well, but you'll notice that you've got these cutouts here, just in there. I don't know whether you can see it that well on the video. I can show you in person, but there's just two little corner steadies that you can actually wind out, and that will just give the rear of the motorhome a small bit of support if you're walking around the van. It's not really too much of an issue in this model because it's not got a massive overhang, but if you do find that it's a little bit bouncy at the back, you can simply use them rear corner steadies to level everything out and just to give it a little bit more rigidity. So next to your barbecue point, you've then got a point here where you can actually access the garage. In here we've got your carpets, and there's also your awning winder, which is just located in there. I'll give you a better view into that area when we move on to the inside of the van, because you can actually lift the bed up and access that, because that's where your boiler is also located. But we'll go into there once we move on to the inside of the motorhome. Next up, you've then got your fill-up point for your fresh water. So this uses a whale pump. All you'll need to do, it'll come with this, just connect that into there. That whale pump will then feed from here onto your hose pipe, onto your tap, and it's just linked through a hose pipe. It comes with the kit, and again I can show you this on handover, but all you need to do is make sure that that's connected in there, connect it up to your tap on site, turn your tap on, and then all you need to do is jump on the inside of the motorhome, turn the fill tank on, which again I will show you when we move on to the inside, and that will allow you to fill up your fresh water tank. It's dead easy, dead simple, and it just allows you to connect it up nice and easier and get that fresh water tank full without having to rely on dragging the hose through the van. As you can see just at the top here underneath your awning, and also you've got one down here where your fridge vents are located. Now this is of course where the fridge pulls all of its air from to cool the fridge. Now if it is a particularly hot day, what I'd recommend is try and keep this area in the shade. Don't keep it in line with the sun, because obviously that's just going to mean that the fridge isn't going to perform as well or efficiently. So if it is a sunny day, pull the awning out perhaps, or turn the van around away from the sun, just to try and keep this area under shade. That will then just allow the fridge to run a little bit more efficiently. You'll also notice there are clips on here. You can buy little covers for these if you wanted when you're storing the vehicle during winter. It's not an absolute necessary or a must, but you can do if you'd like, and they just clip into them little points there. Next up, we've then got your habitation door. We're going to obviously move on to there just shortly, and this vehicle has been fitted with Fiamma door locks. You'll have a key which just unlocks that there, and then you can swing this lock around just for an added layer of protection. And then finally, coming back to the front passenger side, you'll notice here we've got your 230 volt external socket. There we are, couldn't get to it then. And that's great for, you know, if you're outside and you're wanting to charge your phone or anything when you're plugged into your mains electric. And then next to that, you've got your battery compartment. And with this open, you can see it gains you access to your leisure battery. Just bear in mind, in this vehicle you've got two batteries, of course. You've got your leisure here and your vehicle, which is actually located in the cab floor. But yeah, your leisure battery is just located here. You don't really need to do anything with this, just leave this as it is. But it is nice and accessible should you need to ever change it out. And then next to that, you've got your socket, or your plug-in for your 230 volt electric when you're on your campsite. So when you plug in, That will allow the battery to one, charge up, but also will allow you to use power in the vehicle, and that's 230 volt power. So sockets like this one on the outside that I've just shown you, and in the inside of the van, so your 3-pin sockets can all be used when you're plugged into 230 volt. Obviously when you're not plugged in, you're not going to be able to run the vehicle off 230 volt. Everything else will be 12 volt, which will run off your leisure battery. So just bear that in mind. In order to use your sockets or anything that's 230 volt, you've got to be fixed up to a 230 volt mains electric point, which just connects into here. Okie dokie, so we're finished on the outside, we're now on the inside of the motorhome. As I walk through the habitation door, you'll notice directly above, you have got your main control panel for the vehicle. So firstly, you've got your master switch here. If I click that, that will turn off everything. If I click that back on, it'll say master on the panel, and that will turn everything on. In essence, that is the main button or switch that isolates everything in the vehicle. Next up, you can then turn your lights on individually just through that button there, or of course you can turn them on individually through the little switches dotted around the vehicle. You've then got a button here that says awning. That's for your awning light, which is the door light on the outside of the vehicle. And then finally, you've got your pump button here. Click that to turn your pump on. Now, I'm not going to leave the pump on because obviously I've not got much water in the vehicle at the moment and I don't want to burn the pump out. But once you're on site and you're filled up with all your water, you've got everything sealed, ready to be used, click your pump on, then go to all of your taps, including your shower, turn the tap on and turn it to hot. What that will do is it will pull fresh water from the fresh water tank into the boiler and then out of the tap. Now it'll spurt and splutter at first. It'll take a bit of, doing that because it's pulling fresh water through the fresh water tank and then trying to top up 10 litres, which the boiler holds. So you've got to be patient with it. But once it's running steadily, you've primed your system for your hot water. Once you've done that, flick it over to cold. Again, do this for all your taps. And when it's running steadily, you've primed your system and you're good to go. Now, once you've done that, you can leave all of your taps. You can leave your pump on because on each of your taps you've got something called a micro switch, which will activate and deactivate the pump whenever you need it. So a little bit like being at home. The only time you need to turn that pump off by hand or manually is of course when you've not got any water in the vehicle. Because if I was to run that pump for a long period of time now, eventually that pump will burn out. So just bear that in mind. Now coming back up to the control panel, you can see that you've got these two arrows here and an enter button in the centre. Flicking through the options, it's a little bit difficult actually to see on the video. 1 second. I don't know how well you can see that on the video, but it's currently giving me, there we are, it's giving me the level for the fresh water. So you can see we've got nothing in the freshwater tank now, there's no reading. If I select that button again, it'll give me the option for the waste. You can see there's not much in the waste water either, just reading 9%. Next up, you've got your fill internal tank. So like I mentioned on the outside, you can fill your freshwater tank up via the whale system, which comes as a kit with this vehicle. So once you've connected that up, and then you've connected it up to the tap on site, all you need to do, just go back through these options, click enter, which is down here, to fill the tank, and that will allow you to fill up the fresh water tank. Next up, you've then got the external temperature reading. You've got the settings as well. To be honest, there's not a great deal that you need to know in the settings. If there is anything, just give me a call if you ever get into an issue with it. But the settings are there should you need it. You've then got the internal temperature. You've got a battery select. Now leave this on leisure. You do have the option of selecting this onto vehicle. You don't really want to do that because that will mean that all your lights and everything will run off your vehicle battery, which is not what you want. You want to make sure that they run off your leisure battery, because worst case scenario, if you get a flat leisure battery, your lights won't turn on. But if you run it off your vehicle battery, you get a flat vehicle battery, obviously you're not going to be able to go anywhere. So always keep that on leisure. Going back up to the panel, just flip through these options again because it's just timed out. You've then got your battery current and your battery voltage as well. And then we're back to the start. So it's really simple, dead easy. The main things that you need to know is obviously these buttons here, which will It'll allow you to turn your lights on and the system overall. And then on that panel is really, apart from filling up the tank, just an indication of where your waste and water, fresh water levels are and whatnot. So just bear that in mind. Okie dokie, so moving on. Now this is just next to the habitation door where your TV will lie. You can see that you've got two controls here, and this is for the vehicle's heating. So you can run the vehicle heating off the gas, which is done off this top gauge here, or you can run it off 230-volt electric, which is done off this bottom gauge here. Now they both do the same thing. It just depends obviously whether you one want to run it off electric or two want to run it off gas. So depending your preference and obviously your situation and what you've got on site. So firstly, up here, if you're running it off gas, in the middle position, I don't know how well you can see that, there we are. In the middle position as it is here, it is actually turned off. Now, if you want to heat just the water on gas, you've got two options. You can either run it off 40 degrees or 60 degrees. Now, 40 degrees is obviously, really, you're going to be running that when you're taking a shower and things. The majority of the time, you'll run it off your 60 degrees. One, to get it up to temperature nice and quickly, but also if you're washing up and things like that. And that is if you're running it off gas, and that's just for the water itself. Now, if you don't want to heat the water, and you want to just heat the vehicle, if you flick that down to the gas flame, which is just here, that will allow you to heat the vehicle, and that's it. Now, if you want, which in most situations you want to heat the vehicle as well as heat the water, if you flick it all the way down, you can see it takes you, again, it's a little bit difficult to show you on the video, so apologies for that, but it will show a little 60-degree mark and then a gas flame there. That will allow you to heat the vehicle as well as heat the water at the same time. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to be selecting that. Now, what I'd recommend is once you've filled up with your fresh water and you've got it primed through the system and everything is working, turn your heating on and turn your water heating on, or as I've just shown you, both the water and the vehicle heating, and that will just allow the boiler to start getting that water up to temperature. Now, naturally, it's got 10 litres of water in the boiler, so it's going to take a bit of time to get it up to temperature. So that's the first thing that you do on site. Once you've got everything sorted in the van, that water will be nice and warm, because depending on the weather conditions, it will take around 30 to 40 minutes to get that water up to temperature. So just bear that in mind. It always works better off gas as well. It's always quicker to heat the water off gas. So again, if it's a cold day, run it off gas over the electric. One final thing on the gas as well, you have got this little dial for when you select one of these. So just for example, you can select it on 3, 4, or all the way, take it all the way up to 5 should you want to. But I'm just going to turn that off for the time being because I don't want to get an error code on the system, because obviously I've not got anything selected at the moment. I've no gas to the vehicle and I've no 230-volt electric. Now, if you're wanting to run it off 230-volt electric, underneath here is the option for it. So again, in the middle, it is off. If you want to run it off, if you want to heat the water, you can flick it up, which is about 40 degrees, or if you flick it all the way up, that's about 60 degrees. Now, if you want to run the water and just the vehicle heating, you can run that just in this middle position here. But then if you want to run the vehicle heating as well as the fresh water heating, all you'll need to do is flick it down either to 1 or to 2, so depending on what you want to select. Now, the one little line and the gas flame there, again, it's difficult to show you on the camera, will indicate that you can run the heating off 1 kilowatt electric. Now, to be honest, it's going to struggle in a vehicle of this size, so what I'd recommend is flicking it all the way down to the 2 kilowatt electric, and that will allow you to run the vehicle heating and the water heating simultaneously using the electric. I'll flick that back to the middle, but it's very similar as it is for the gas, but that will just allow you to run it off electric rather than gas. Now, moving on from the heating system, we're obviously into your kitchen area. We've spoken about priming the system for the taps. In the kitchen area, you've got 4 gas burners, and underneath there, you've got your oven and grill as well. You've got a really good bit of storage in the kitchen area as well, and you can see that you've got two 230 volt plugs should you need to charge anything or plug any appliances in. Opposite the kitchen area, you'll also notice that you've got your microwave, which is 230 volt. Again, this will only allow you to use this when you're plugged into 230 volt mains electric. And then below that, you've got your Dometic 3-way fridge. So there's 3 ways of powering this, and you can select that through this dial like so. So firstly, in the up position, it is off. If you want to run the fridge off 230 volt electric, this is that little 2-pin plug icon. You can select that onto there. If you want to run the fridge off the 12 volt leisure battery, you can flick it onto the battery icon. And then finally, if you're wild camping, you can run it off your gas. Now we'll turn that off for the time being, because obviously you're going to use these in different scenarios. Now, if you're on your campsite and you're plugged into 230 volt electric, you'll run it off your 2-pin plug icon there. If you are travelling, you will run it off your 12 volt leisure battery. And then when you're stationary, as I've just mentioned, and you're not plugged into anything, you run it off your gas. Now, a lot of people think that they can run the fridge off the 12 volt leisure battery if they're wild camping. However, that's not the case, because if it was, it would just simply, take so much power out of your battery, you'd be left with nothing. So it will only allow you to run the fridge off the 12 volt leisure battery when you're travelling. The reason for that is this vehicle has been fitted with a alternator, which will send power from the vehicle battery when it's running to your leisure battery, which will just top it up. So it means when your ignition's on, it's powering your leisure battery, which can ultimately power your fridge. Obviously, when you're stationary and that cuts out, it won't allow you to. Only run it off your gas if you're wild camping, so just bear that in mind. Next up, you've then got a little dial here to change the temperature. I'll leave that on the max there. And also, if you're running this off gas, you've got a little igniter button here just to ignite it and allow the fridge to start. In the fridge, you've got your freezer up at the top and your fridge is just below. Okie dokie, so moving backwards, moving on from the fridge, you can see that you've also got a really good bit of hanging space in this wardrobe here. You've also got an infill cushion here should you want to make the front bed up, and you can see you've also got your Vision Plus aerial here, which will link to your telly. For your aerial, there's a little switch on the top of it which will allow you to turn it on. When it's glowing green as it is now, it will indicate that you're getting a good signal. When it's glowing amber, it's not the best signal, and the red is obviously the signal is more or less vacant. It's not there, so you want to ideally get it on green. You can, to improve the signal, unscrew the aerial. So if I do that for you now, there we are. Unscrew that white collar there and slide the aerial up. You can then tighten that into position. That will then allow you to get a better range, and you can twist that aerial to point in the correct direction. You've also got a little arm on the bottom of it here, which will allow you to wind the head of the aerial, and that will basically allow you to tilt the head of the aerial again to improve your range and improve your signal. You've also got a rangefinder on here as well. This has been set to max, as you'd want it to be. Now, if you have got someone in the front, you have got a dividing screen here. That just clips out and connects up to here via the magnetic strip, and that will obviously allow you to section and partition the vehicle off. In here as well, you can see you've got your freestanding table in there, which can be used in the front when you're eating. And in the back as well, you've got a point here for another telly. Now, turning around, you can see that we've got your rear bed here. I've just lifted the bed up because underneath here you can see it'll gain you access to a really good bit of storage. You can see you've got your carpets, as I mentioned previously. There's also a central strut for the awning should you need it, and your boiler is located at the back there. Now, I got the two drain down points mixed up when I was explaining them on the outside. That drain down point on the outside is actually for the wastewater drain down point, so apologies for that. And you can actually access this tank just by lifting up this panel here. You can see will allow you access, should you ever need to, into the wastewater tank. But to drain that down, it will be done on the outside. The fresh water is actually located in this little slot here. Lift that up again, and you can see by removing the red cap in here, You can see there's a little hole at the bottom. There'll be a little cork that you simply pull that out, and that will allow you to drain down the tank. So apologies for getting them mixed up. But this is for your freshwater tank, and this is how you drain it. For the wastewater tank, you drain that on the outside. Now, to show you that little cork, if I just go into this compartment here, you can see this is what I mean. That will slot into there to seal the unit, and all you've got to do is pull that out to drain down the unit. So when it's in use, obviously leave that in, but when you're not using the vehicle, simply pull that out, store that cork somewhere safe, and that will allow you to drain down the entire freshwater tank. Now, coming on to the final drain down point, as I mentioned, you've got a boiler drain down point, which is actually just located here. I'm just going to get my torch to use this because it's a little bit difficult to show you. But you can see just there is where your boiler drain down point is. That little blue button, that little yellow button, which is just there. In the up position, it is open. Flick that down towards you or the other way, it doesn't really matter, and that will allow you to to seal the boiler. So when the vehicle's in use and you're filled up with water, seal that, because then you can then turn your pump on and feed all the water through. And then when you're not using the vehicle, flick that up, and that will allow all the water to drain on the outside of the vehicle. Now, on the campsite, you will have a big grid that you can drive over. Just simply line yourself up with that. Line up all your drain down points, and you can just open them up one by one. Drain down the majority of the water on site, because you don't really want to be travelling with water due to your payload. So drain all your water down on site, and then what I typically recommend to customers is leaving all the drain down points open, because as you're travelling, all them vibrations from the road will ensure that that water, or that residual water that's remaining in the tank, makes its way out. Now, look, next to the bedroom area, you've got your toilet area. Now, obviously, we've spoken again about priming the systems. The main thing that I need to discuss with you is the toilet. As I discussed on the outside, you've got something called a blade on the toilet. That blade is this piece of plastic here. Now, in this position, when you pull it towards you, it's closed, and then push it away from you to open it. Now, when the cassette is in use, you need to ensure that the blade is open. That will allow all the waste to drop into the cassette. Once you've done that, press the button here. That will activate your flush, and that will flush the entire system. Once you've done that, pull the blade back towards you to close it, and that will ensure that any odours from in the cassette won't escape, but it'll also get you into the habit of having that closed, so when you come to remove the cassette, it won't end up jamming. So when it's in use, open it. When you finish using the toilet, simply seal it. One thing to mention as well, for your flush, this blue button will activate that. You will need your pump on for that to activate, so just bear that in mind. And you can also see that you've got a little symbol here. This will light up red when the cassette is full to indicate when that needs emptying. Okie dokie, so we're just moving into the front now of the vehicle. In the cupboard just above your heater, the previous customers had a max view satellite dish installed. You can see that there's a power button here, which I've just selected. You've then got the main control panel, which is magnetised here, and you can see on here you've got two little icons. You've got an icon here which will allow you to raise the satellite dish, and then you've got a little icon here to lower the satellite dish. Now, I've actually clicked that, and you may actually be able to hear the satellite searching for a signal. But if I just jump on the inside, on the outside of the van, you notice that that max view aerial is now trying to find a signal. Now, what will happen? That aerial will now search for a signal, and once it's found a signal, it will lock on. Now, this is something that the previous customer has had fitted. If it cannot find the signal, it'll simply go back down, because in certain areas you won't be able to find one, but just bear that in mind. Once you've finished using the satellite, all you need to do is click that button here, and then you can see, as indicated on the screen, it'll say antenna down, and that will now retract and lower the aerial. Now, the majority of times you'll use the aerial which is located in this cupboard, but if you're going abroad, that is dead handy to use. Once that has been retracted down, you can actually see it just through there, just lowering itself. you can then turn this power button off, and that will shut the satellite off. Okie dokie, so moving into the front, you can see that you've got your two captain chairs at the front. Now they do swivel. All you've got to do is pull this lever here, that will release the seat and allow you to swivel that round. You've also got this lounge area here as well. Now you've got storage underneath the majority of this lounge, but underneath this front section here is where your fuse box is located, as well as an onboard safe. And just like that, you can see I've just removed the cushions. Lifting this up will gain you access to the fuse box and also the RCD breaker. So if the vehicle ever trips, you can come to this point here, and all your fuses are located down here, nice and accessible. I'd personally recommend taking some spare fuses with you when you're out travelling, just in case anything does blow, because it's a very easy fix. Now they are just normal generic fuses. You shouldn't need any specialised fuses or anything like that, so just get them from Halfords or on the internet, and just take a spare pack with you just in case, because if anything blows, at least it's an easy fix. But that can all be done from here, and then next to that is where you've got your onboard safe as well, nice and tucked away. You've also, in the corner there, got a little regulator, and that is actually for your solar panel, which is on board. Obviously it's not going to be doing much at the moment, and you don't really need to do much with the solar panel. That's what that is there for. That will just regulate how much charge is coming in from the solar panel and going to your leisure battery. Now if you like, you can actually turn this area into a bed should you need to. To turn this into a bed, all you've got to do is slide out these panels here, just like so. Do the same with this side. These will meet in the middle and create a base for the bed. Once you've done that, all you need to do is slide your cushions into the middle. Your backrest will then drop down, and there'll be a small gap which that infill, which I showed you in the wardrobe, will slot into. That will then allow you to use this front section as a bed. I'll do that for you now. And just like that, you can see I've just placed the infill along the middle, and this creates a really nice sized bed. Now what I'd recommend is using a mattress topper if you are planning on sleeping on this for a long period, just because of obviously the grooves in the cushions, and what a lot of people do is they'll flip these over because it's a little bit flatter to lie on. But there you are, it's dead easy and dead simple. And just like that, your bed is now back into a lounge. Now that completes pretty much the entire handover video, but I just wanted to point out as well, on each of your windows you can see that you've got a blackout blind and a fly screen, and all your windows can be opened using these latches like so. Using the black knobs on the side, they will then allow you to tighten the window into position. You can put these windows on venting as well, just to allow a little bit of airflow through, but please ensure that when you're travelling, these windows are nice and tight and sealed, because you don't want any wind getting through there as you're travelling, because obviously it could potentially rip the side of the window off. Same goes for all your skylights. You can open these up like so, but again, make sure that they're fastened in position correctly. You've got a blackout blind and a fly screen on here should you need it. You've got the same on all your skylights around the vehicle. And that concludes the handover video on this Bailey Approach 740S. I hope you enjoyed.